How do we mine today? Mostly being from the top down, and below level, it's very precise. It takes a lot of time, just one layer at a time. Going from the top down is logical. That's what we do today. Planting these explosives one by one. Takes a lot of time. Imagine how much time it took back in the day trying to go in the side of a mountain. But here's just an example of the detail it takes, how long it takes. Of course, they probably had a lot more men doing this at one time, but just an example. I would love to do that right there. But an example of what they do. So before power tools, they were going in the sides of the mountains and chiseling all this out basically. So we're just going to step in and look at a few places, show a few pictures, get a little close, ask a lot of questions, and see, did they really do these things, or were they founded, and then mined? Appreciate everybody being here. Many mines now have said to being flooded out, and you can see the tracks here in the water. Though we've seen the pumping out of water and some old pictures of mining. But what I like to do also is just really take a look at closely the objects in the way of train tracks, or the tracks, and how low and how low the ceilings are, and what is this kind of stuff and why is it there? Because this is just going to get in the way. But if you look at it closely, you can see these lines here. So you would say this is obvious man-made structure here, and it's covered in this. And in the back here, you can barely see some lines. It's a little fuzzy, but why is this here exactly? And why is this man-made covered by this, which looks kind of like the mountain? You go deep into these places, and then you start to find structure, obvious structure, sometimes bricks, sometimes concrete, wood. I do want to pay attention to these darkened lines too, the further they go down and into the rock here. And with the narrative that they tell us, they're mostly done by hand, right through the middle of the mountain or bottom, not from the top, but from the side, mostly by hand, because most of these started, at least in the US, in the 1800s up until the very early 1900s. And here you have wood straight through this concrete looking material. If you're mining, not sure what the purpose of any of this would be, and all of this is just in the way. Reference here, and somebody is chalked in when they were here, looks like 11150, the year 1950, and the year here. And the point is so that's 74 years ago, we'll say, and it's looks like you could have done that yesterday. But everything else is so much more deteriorated. Just an observation. I want to zoom in here. This is just the middle of the walkway of a mine. This thing's really in the way, but you go down here in the corner and you start to see those black lines at the very bottom of this cement looking structure, matching up with the rock here that it's connected to. Very interesting. And here again at this channel, I ask a lot of questions. That's the main thing I do. If you're following the narrative, it's just you're just thinking that they came down here and built all this for whatever reason. And most of the time, stuff really doesn't make sense of what they were actually trying to do by taking stuff out, coal mining, iron, whatever. But does this make sense here? You have this obvious man-made structure. This is on top of it, connected, kind of merged, but you kind of see the same color all the way through from this to this over here. This kind of slanting this way, like maybe falling over down. That might seem a little strange to hear for newcomers to my channel, but I don't know. I'm just asking questions. But could have this have all just been here? And then people came in and took stuff or mined? Because it's not really making any sense what we're seeing as far as all this destruction, number one, and how far they have to go down to build this kind of stuff, sometimes being before power tools. Right in the middle of this walkway, you might even have had some tracks down here, but there's just a small opening, and it's not even level. It's going down at an angle both ways. Blocks here, they look a little drippy looking, but inside the blocks, what looks like blocks, if you have this just rock, messy rock, all in the middle of it. That also doesn't really make any sense. You're having to crawl through these openings, through these mines. Why would you block all this up? Rock it, brick it, doesn't matter. Why would you do that and then put this little window opening? Miles or hundreds of feet or whatever down through the mine, and you do this? But this is actually looking to me, because you can see the different variations of the rock and how different it looks, and all of this white, and then stopping in certain spots. Why is that happening? If this was man-made as they were building the mine or chiseling out the mine or what have you, why would they even do this? You really have to guess for yourself when you're in these kind of places. I haven't been to one this spectacular, but so if you're into the narrative of mining and going exactly what they're saying, which they don't explain much, you're just assuming because you're only given a few things here and there of how they actually mine these places. But you're going to put these support beams of wood and then rock it all up. When in the same place they have big stone walls, concrete, iron, brick. Why do they keep changing their "we're going to hold this roof up" thing? Just asking questions. Not sure what this is, but very fascinating and not level at all. And was there tracks here? All you see is rock and stuff, and they say these are slope mines. Well, okay, the roof is flat. If you're going to do this by hand, or even when they had power tools, why don't you go flat? It doesn't make any sense. All of a sudden, you just walk into a room like this. What would even be the purpose of this? You can see blocks here, but this is covered. These are slanted, pushing in. You have a slanted roof going down. But what would be the purpose of this in a mine? Is this where you store the donkeys, or is this the picnic area, break room? How would you go through this whole place carry all this stuff down here for one to build it. But closely looking, it's looks like it's changing here, or did change. Just an observation. Could this have been built here? Right? Possibly. I don't think so. I think this was all here. Imagine getting this huge piece of machinery down here too. And this almost 45 degrees slanted ceiling. What was really going on here? You walk and walk, and then you run into a little window here, and then it goes to nowhere. It's just all sealed up here. You've got this hole. This spot just looks pretty nutty. At one time, some kind of piping or something. Was it melted out? Is this corrosion over just, say, 100 years? I mean, sediments, they obviously drip in some places and then color stuff on the outside. So what's really going on here? There's nothing left, and I'm not sure what kind of material this is coming from it. It goes all the way down and then stops. Like there it is here. That's that same piece that was going up. And then you get another pipe looking thing that went down, but it looks like this and goes pretty far down. This is around the Birmingham, Alabama area. And when you look closely at this stuff, as I said, why are you bringing bricks down here? Why are you doing that? You're having to do all this by hand too, and you're just going to brick some certain parts up. But it looks like it's almost like this rock stuff here. It's merging in. These bricks are changing, in my opinion. It just doesn't make any sense. If we start asking some questions more often, why does it look like this and the brick fades, and then you have the rock, supposed rock, over this brick here? You have these bricks that have changed this color, which is actually the color of this rock, only in certain places. Why would you do this? This fancy stuff here, what, brick in and out? If this is really going on back then, as far as doing all this by hand and going in the middle of a mountain, is this necessary? Any of this, all this brickwork? It's changed to me. All this was building too in the background, and possibly found and then possibly mined after that. You have a little opening here where you come in this place, and all of a sudden you get this. Out here they have boulders and stuff that are blocking the area with this little opening, like I said, and you have these rails that are covered with all of this stuff. To come down here and put all of this on top of this rock after you have, in most cases by hand, chiseled this out. And you come to spots in many mines everywhere that are flooded out, rails going straight into the water. Did they pump this water out? Did it all of a sudden, they hit springs and it filled up in thousands and thousands of these mines, because a lot of them are filled with water. You're walking through these very low mines and you run into stuff like this, which is obvious man-made. This one even is kind of slanted down. You could say it's been damaged through the years, but again, these really aren't that old from their narrative of when they started digging out these mines. And you're passing along, and you would just think Oh, well, they just bricked this up. They didn't want anybody to get in here, which in some cases that's true, but normally you would see some gates or iron bars, maybe cinder blocks, newer. This typically doesn't or wouldn't happen, especially once you get into a mine. So then you have to drag all these bricks down here. It's looking very similar. You can even see some red over here, looking very bricky like all through here. Possibly this might have been a building and this is the only section left. Just asking some questions. This is actually around the Birmingham area. I've ridden past this place before. It's right off the road. Of course, I didn't see any of this stuff. I believe I got these pictures somewhere off the internet, but this is looking very weird. Number one, you have these stamp bricks here. You see Birmingham, Alabama. But what is this doing? What is the brick doing there? What are all the bricks doing? Here's a shot, and you have the top of the hill here. So all of erosion and everything happening. How did this fill up? Maybe they did something to push all this up there. I don't know, but the color is very interesting. Also, you have red, 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 and obviously this went down at least this far. So this is all covered in, iron sticking out, but just the color of everything. Very strange if you're thinking they did this just not even 100 years ago. At least when they started, it could have been over 100 years ago, but what a mess. Where did all this come from? The top of the hill is back there. You can see tons of structures in the background sticking out of the mountain, the hill. Bricks everywhere. Goes to what looks like concrete, but with the lines, who knows what's behind this outer covering, which I think is brick most of the time. And are you building like this with rock and mortar just in this spot? Another shot here. You have this red, and then it drifts into this blackened or brown, back into red. Brick everywhere. All this was, in my opinion, brick underneath all of this stuff. Even changed to what looks like concrete here, but you can make out some brick-like stuff here, all underneath. Could this have been built later? I have no idea. Possibly. I'm just mostly sticking to this obvious old stuff. To me, it was here and founded, no matter if they used it or not. But by sitting here, doesn't make any sense why it looks like this now. You go in and you run into stuff like this. You have rails. This is gone. Kind of bent in there. This is gone. So was this here put in after the rails? Because they're going straight. You can't go any further. Back here, it's even closed down even more. You can't even get in there. Why is this here? Sometimes they'll say, oh, this is collapsed. From where? There's hardly any room here, number one. But you got to really look at this stuff here. Has this been changed by an event and was found? And now it's a mine, or was a mine. An example of where are these rails going? What is all this? If you say it's collapsed, well, it looks nothing like the ceiling, the roof here. Different color. It's not really wet. It's not mud. This is all rock and blocks or all kind of stuff. And see how this is sloped so heavily? Another example of why are you mining sideways? at a 45-degree angle. And they could say, oh, well, it was just like that, and we're going straight. And many times the floor you're walking on is also slanted. So here, to me, at least all of this stuff here was a building coming over, sinking down in a major cataclysm, 1700s, somewhere around there. I have no idea. That's just my opinion. Not too long ago. But this should be confusing. This shouldn't be, well, it's collapsed. From where? This is major. Here's more back here. Say it's collapsed. Well, if it did, it left a perfect flat ceiling here. Just about a perfect squared off column here. You have rails. And this rail here. Let's just think about it this 1 second. It's bent up, bent down. Did they put these rails, say 100 years ago, whatever, over this rock and it bent? You can't get a cart over there like that. Did it collapse from under itself and bow this up? See, these things don't make sense. But you got to look closely. And what's really going on here? You have these iron beams and everything, and so you would say somebody exploring with the narrative, like this all collapsed and came in and filled all this in. Really? Yes, there's collapses all the time. Seen it in real time on mountains, inside mountains, but I've never seen anything that looks like this. But regardless, it's weird. How about that? All over this place, all over the world. You have things like this right under our feet. What's going on here? You have almost a half archway of all these blocks, bricks, and you transform to this stuff. This is all leaning over. Is the archway necessary? What is this walkway? Are these rails under here? Looks like maybe some rails, but just the whole outlook of this. And then it stops, and then you get more brick down here or block. Would you put all this stuff together like this? And what's the reason? Check this piping out. It's incredible. You go from these blocks and rocks, half archway, not even half, but it's squeezing in. To my eyes, I mean, you could say it's fantasy. Doesn't matter. That's what it looks like it's doing. Would you ever do all this? Look at how intricate even these rocks are, blocks. How would you? I don't even hardly see any mortar, and it's just supposedly stacked, I guess, in this intricate way. And then they only do it here and there in the walls, and then you start doing it more back here, and all this down here. What was that? Was it rails? Where are they at? Are they under it? Just really need to start making sense of this stuff as far as the people researching. Why? You're chiseling all this out. You can say you're put dynamite to it, whatever, back in the day. Why are you doing this? What's the purpose? Some have wooden or iron beams to what they say support the roof and stuff. What's going on here? You continue in these mines and you have all this mess. Supposed to be doing all this probably by hand, and then all of a sudden you're just gonna do a little archway here for what? You start getting, looks like, more you would say would be man-made on top of the rock. Why? Who would do this? Really strange looking old picture here. We got really young people, and this looks very worn and old. And what's going on with this track here? To me, it really doesn't look like that's going to work too well, or maybe that's just the end of the line. I'm not sure even how it got to this point with the rails looking like that. But this guy looking for, he's probably looking for some gold for himself. So the invention of power tools, 1895. This is, they say, 1910. So it didn't become prevalent, at least in the U.S., until the 1900s, I believe, what the narrative says. And so this is how they're mining around this time period here. What were they doing before this? You can even say 1600s, 1700s, 1850s. How are they doing any of this? And how long does this take to do with this? I think it's actually called a rock drill sprayer. I think that's the term. Look at these guys. How long would this take? This is in the 1900s. What happened before then? So before, they were doing it by hand, cutting all this out, and then they went to power tools, doing it this way. And the point is, how did they do it before? And this takes a long time, so looks like I'll end it here. Just wanted to give a reference to, if you happen to be on Facebook, this is my group. There's many groups out there referring to cataclysms, old world, melted buildings, meltology. This one is called Melted Brick Discoveries. I just want to thank everybody for being on the group and sharing, especially when you share boots on the ground. It's my favorite, obviously, but it's a great resource for pictures. As you can see here, James, that you can come to with little effort as far as research, and everybody else is doing research basically for you. As much as I don't like the Facebook whole idea and what they do, this is the only reason I have an account. So if you don't like Facebook, hey, make a fake account, and if you want to see some incredible pictures from all kind of groups. And while we're on this subject, just want to highlight on Deborah Simpson, the Red Brick Chick is her channel. But here's some under brick realm, I like to call, some of her pictures that she has found and shares with many groups. But just getting back to the mines, what they call mines, how is it possible? Back in the day, you have brick here to changing to rock, stone. What really happened, we don't really know yet. We're narrowing it down. We can see a major heat, electrical, probably vibrations frequency happened here not too long ago, and they have put narratives on them. And again, I'm not saying that these places weren't mined, what they say mined, but I think they were found like this and drug some stuff down here to retrieve things, or to actually, say, chisel stuff out to get gold, minerals, whatever. But finding these things in this condition and putting a narrative, what they give us as far as how this happened, with no proof, by the way, that any of this was built. None of it. You talk about not having construction photos of even one or two old grainy pics or suspect pics, there is nothing on what they do down below ground level here. So I guess I'm gonna get out of here. Just asking questions. Peace within.